like I said, I'm making this up as I go. I don't know what I was trying to do with the moon here. I thought I could shadow one side of it to give it more depth, but I gave up. As you could probably tell from the thumbnail of the video, that this is going to be a different style of video. I have been watching a lot of Drawfee the past couple of days, and they made me want to try my hand at digital art. I'll put the link to their channel down below because they're the ones that made me want to try my hand at digital art. And so I recorded my whole process. So let's get into this and I'll give you my commentary as we work. Now, as you see, I started out with a blank screen just to give me a place to start, and then I was trying to block in my starting shapes. It starts out really rough. I'm freehanding this with a mouse. I don't have one of those fancy drawing pads, and I really didn't have an idea. I had an idea what I wanted to make, but I didn't have any reference photos. I didn't have anything to look at. I'm just freehanding this. This is coming out of my imagination, and you see me kind of blocking in the sand and the sky and the sea. I don't know much about Emerge. My friend Luke let me use it to make the thumbnails for my YouTube videos, and that's about all I make it for. Here I'm trying to add in a little more detail over this next mask, but it's not working out the way I wanted to, so I'm playing with it and trying to figure it out, but then I end up deleting the layer because it doesn't look like anything's happening to just make a new layer again. I was trying to figure out how to make stars, and then I was just like, hey, I can change the size of the brush, and just started dotting stars around. This is me checking the layers to see where everything is and see how everything's coming together. And then I made another layer because I wanted to add in like a moon, and that looked ugly, so I had changed my mind about that. So I'm trying to figure out what size would work best for this moon, and I settled on 200. And then I put another layer up and reposition the moon because I didn't like how it was kind of off to the side, and I'm trying to play with it to make it look more natural. I've used the cloud effect before in things, and I thought it'd make a cool moon texture, so I'm just trying to play with the roughness and brightness of it and the opacity of the clouds to give it like a moon sort of texture. And I don't know what I was trying to do with the outer glow. I think I was trying to make the moon glow, but it went to the whole back white layer since it was a mask, so I ended up deleting that. And here I try to put in some water details, trying my best to trace it out. And I ended up not really liking the look of it because it's kind of blocky, so I go try to lower the opacity to make it look more like water hitting the sand. Because I'm trying to do how when the water hits the land it breaks, but then I ended up deleting it because I didn't like it. And now you see me trying to get the moonshine onto the water. I didn't like that, so I keep trying to make them smaller, and I think I completely delete this and come back to it again because it just wasn't working for me. So then I go back, make a whole nother mask, and now I'm playing with the moon's reflection, trying to figure out how I want it, lowering the opacity to get it more like a reflection. I kind of liked the squiggles look, and then when I lowered the opacity of it, I loved the squiggly look, so I just made that a little more prominent and tried to make it as neat as possible. Right now, this is a very blocky stage. And then I thought, well, there's not enough in the water, so then I go back to my stupid little squiggles, and I lower the opacity because I liked how that looked. So I'm like, what if I lower the opacity on the squiggles? And I ended up liking that a little better than the harsh white ones. And here I am again trying to add the water breaking against the shore. Again, I had no reference for this. I had a vague idea of what I wanted to do, and I just went with it hoping the program would do what I wanted to. So now that I figured out I could just lower the opacity on this layer to get it to look more like normal, that's the road I decided to go down because I knew I wanted the waves breaking against the sand. So here you see me doing that. And then I'm finally happy with how it breaks the land. This is me trying to add some texture to the sand. And I don't know what's with me and dots, but for some reason I love the look that dots gives, like a painting or a drawing or a digi-painting. So I was using the dots in a slightly darker brown to kind of give texture to the sand. And you'll see me do this process over and over with different colors, using the mask to be able to do that. This was kind of a fun process. When you're doing dots, it's kind of minds off, just letting your hand pick which one you want. And here you see me fixing my layers and then adding in the next color, which is black, to give it a little bit more pop and variation in the colors in the sand. Because when you look at sand, the sand isn't just one color, and it felt very flat with just the lighter brown and then the slightly darker brown. So I was like, let's add some black, and then I came in and was like, let's add like a really dark gray in there too. So I'm just dotting that around, and you can see how doing that really lends texture to the sand, and you can see how it went from really flat in the beginning to where it's starting to get detail. And then because of the dots on the sand, I was like, now there's not enough dots in the sky. So I ended up going back with slightly smaller dots and putting more stars in the sky because it just looked more finished that way. Now, for me, it's looking better, but it's still looking flat. So I went through and I was like, what is wrong with this? Why don't I like it? And this is where I start thinking, oh, some line work will make it pop. I started out with like the smallest black brush, and I was like, no, I don't like it. And here I thought zooming in would help steady my hand, but it just made it 10 times more tedious. So I was like, why am I doing this? I'm going to change it back to normal size and just try my best. I didn't try so hard to get it perfectly straight because 1, I'm using a mouse, 2, I have shaky hands, and 3, I'm just not good at straight lines. So I just tried my best to get it as close to possible as straight as I went along. You could tell it took me a few tries, but we eventually got there. See, there we go, that's a line I'm happy with. So then add some to the water to give that more dimension. Then I decided there needed to be some darker spots in the shadows, and I thought that turning the opacity down really helped make it like not so harsh and more like a shadow. And then I was like, ooh, I actually really like the look of the opacity down on the line work. And then I thought putting a shadow around the reflection would look nice, but I really didn't end up liking the look of it. I tried it on one side first, and then you'll see in a second that I try it on the other side. But I decided I didn't like the look of that, and I decided to erase it because it didn't look right. So then I start outlining the beach and showing where the waves hit the sand just to give it a little more dimension. Like I said, I'm making this up as I go. I don't know what I was trying to do with the moon here. I thought I could shadow one side of it to give it more depth, but I gave up. And then I go back to figuring out the beach. I kind of liked that a lot, and I was like, oh, I could put some of the same shadows into the water break so that I could make it look more realistic, and that's what I start doing here. I outline the water breaks to make it look like it's actually coming up on the beach and leaving the beach a little wet. This process took a little bit longer than you would think because this is on 600 speed. The real, full, unedited, unsped up video took 2.5 hours. I was also listening to the music in the background, so it was kind of nice. And then this is where you see me kind of adding in the soft lines to the breaks in the water. When I added the lines to the water breaks is when I really started to be like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, and you see me turning on and off the soft lines to see if I want to keep it or not. But even after this, it looked flat, so I tried to add dots to the moon, and I did not like that, so I quickly deleted it. And this is where you see me put the shadow on the inside, and I thought that was nice. I know I wanted some like lighter highlights in the water. I really liked how the moon reflection came out, because as I was playing around with it, I was like, ooh, I could put the lighter stuff in the center and just leave it at the bottom so it looks like the moon is closer to the water. I was trying to make it look like the waves had also bubbled up on the sand, but I didn't like that. And I was like, I liked the way the white looked on the sand, just not as water bubbles. So I started dotting the white all over the sand. Once again, a mindless process. I just tried not to overdo it. And then you see me going in with the water break color to give some kind of like ripples to these waves that are breaking the land. Honestly, I really liked this process. I had music on in the background while I was playing it that I obviously had to cut out of the recording, both because it would have been sped up and really annoying, and because I was listening to copyright music in the background, so I knew I wanted to do this sort of commentary thing over it to show my process. So then you see me kind of mess around with shadows by putting a darker color on each side of the water ripples. I like how that looked, so I decided to keep it through all of them. And then it still looks flat to me, so I still need to figure out what I want to do with the water, and you can see me sitting there trying to figure it out. And that's when I decided to put some little bits of white in the water as well, like I did with the ripples for the water breaks, because I liked the look of that. And it's starting to really come together. As I said, I'm freehanding this. I had no plan going in. I knew I wanted a beach. That was it. And there's something really relaxing about just going at a drawing with a basic idea, and that's it. And once again, me and dots, I don't know why every single artwork, I just think dots make nice details. So you see me putting little tiny dots in the water to give it some more pop and more dimension. And once again, I'm back to the sky because it looks really flat after putting all the work into the water and stuff. So you see me playing with the layers, trying to turn them on and off to see what works. And then I dot the sky some more with even smaller stars. And here I was trying to figure out what to do with it to make it look more cohesive and figure out what I want to do to the sky. So I took the cloud effect and put it over the whole thing, but I hated the way it looked, so I took it off. I wanted to do something for the sky because it was so plain. So here I am trying to figure out what I wanted to do for the sky to make it look more detailed like the rest of it had been. And I finally settled on the clouds. Now you'll notice when I put the cloud effect in, the sky got much darker, and it just made the beach and the water look like it was from a completely different artwork. So I start playing with the color of the sky a bit to fix that issue. And then for the sand, I found this gradient effect which made it look even more like sand. So I popped that on there. And once again, I'm back to the water. I'm trying to figure out what effect I want to put on that. That looked absolutely disgusting, so I was like, never mind. The fractal noise didn't work, so I completely deleted it. The long shadows didn't do anything in my opinion. And then I found the vinaigrette effect, and this just made it absolutely gorgeous to me. So I started playing with the size of the vinaigrette to see where I wanted it. It just made it look like the moon was actually shining on the sun. And then I found this caustic effect, and it actually looks like rippling water and light going through rippling water. So I was playing around with the intensity of that to see where I wanted it to fit, because I knew I wanted it lighter where the moon was mainly hitting the water and darker on the other side where the vinaigrette was. And it just came out so nice. I love how the water came out. I've never made water like this. I'm really happy with how it turned out, to be completely honest. And I'm again messing with the grain of the sand, trying to figure that out fully. I decided I wanted to go a little bigger to make it fit the water better. And then I added a vinaigrette to make it fit the water more because I didn't feel like it matched the water anymore. So you see me playing around with that to see where the moon would actually affect the sand. And I settled on just a small spot. I'm back to the sky, trying to figure out what I want to do for that because the sky was far too dark now. And so you see me adjusting the clouds. I don't know what happened there. My layer glitched out. And it was like, okay. So I'm adjusting the colors of the sky, trying to get something that fits with the rest of the drawing. That I felt was too dark. And so I'm trying to play with the shape of and roughness of the clouds. Just trying to get it to fix. I knew that I was happy with the rest of it at this point, so I didn't mess with any of it. The clouds were giving me the hardest time because I just couldn't get it to look how I wanted it to look with the rest of the beach and the water. I thought curving it would be better, but I ended up deleting that because it looked terrible. Then I ended up adding another vinaigrette to it and putting it just where the moon was shining. That made it even darker, so then I had to come back through and lighten the sky again. I was finally happy with it after adding a few more stars just to lighten up the sky a little bit, and that's the finished artwork here in a second. that's the finished artwork I ended up settling on. I'm really happy with how it came out. This whole process was really fun. It only took 2.5 hours not knowing what I'm doing, because when I was in graphic arts we used Photoshop, and to be completely honest with you, I was done with my work in like 1.5 hours when we had 3 hours of lab. So I wasn't actually doing much digi-drawing, and so this was the first time in years I have done a digi-drawing, and I enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and watching me ramble about my process. It was fun, both making the drawing itself and just chilling while I listen to music, and then editing this video down and speeding it up to like show my process fully. I've never watched myself draw before, and I think it's honestly really cool looking to just watch somebody draw. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Bye guys!